If Urin is not D tier and Wilmer's not S tier, I'm gonna be a little upset. I'm not gonna lie.
Yo, hey guys, welcome back to another video.
Popcorn time.
This one is going to be a little different. It's going to be a statue tier list video. You guys were asking.
Huh? No, but that's fine. It'll just be for the YouTubes.
About statues and how good they are, and talking about putting them in like a tier list. So we got our statues over here. We got the explanations of what they do, and we're going to be kind of grading each of them and put them into the respective tiers. So we'll start off. We have Kyra. So I'm gonna do like I guess like a scorecard for.
Whoa. Here's a scorecard for this. That's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. Effectiveness over time, activate. Well, this makes my life a lot easier.
For each.
Comment on specific
So
things.
Kyra has a build effect, or they all have a build effect, and they also have an upgrade effect. I use different words. I did passive effect, ranking effect, but it'll be kind of the same thing. So build effect is 20% faster primary with attacks, and a 50% chance to fire 2 arrows dealing 10 physical damage. This scales up with skill power, so it's a little awkward that you're using a primary attack and then you're having another thing that scales with skill power.
I don't know if he's gonna comment on this. I see what he's saying, but like, pretty much everything scales with skill power in the late game. So this allows characters that don't have good skills to still build skill power because they can just build a primary build.
If this was, considered a primary type thing, like the chapel bonus, then this would be really good. But the only way I can really think to use this is just you're scaling your primary attack speed so you can get more arrows out faster, which seems okay. But the base damage starts at 10, and you can scale it up, and then scale it up with some more skill power. So I guess we'll first start off with the passive effect. The passive effect is really good. Even at level 1, it's basically god tier. Like you you craft the statue, and you have 20% faster attack.
Yeah, I agree with that. The attack speed it
Is
lets you leech more as well. You get more instances of your really high damage, and you have less downtime in between each attack where you would be able to get hit when you aren't leeching, which in turn increases your survivability by a lot.
pretty much comparable with every other damage statue. Callus is one that a lot of other primary builds use. So is this enough damage to where if you attack 20% slower, it's going to outscale it, and you can use them together
I wonder
as
if he
well.
put the
So
document in
it's
his
a really good statue.
description. If not, I might just make my own, to be honest. What is he using? Excel? Ugh, let's use Google Sheets. Most of my Google Sheets stuff is Hammerwatch, so go to Google Sheets. I don't really know how to use this, but I'm sure we can set up one. Yeah, look at this. Literally all of this is like... Oh, that's not supposed to be on here. Most of it's just Hammerwatch stuff. I have like a Physics 2 thing that I did earlier this semester, but that's pretty much it. A to-do list, no thanks. Blank. What does a blank Google Sheets look like? Okay. So on the tail, he has blue. That's a little too fancy for me. So he has statue. This is probably a more efficient way to do this. Statue damage, passive effect. Ranking. Oh yeah, so like that's leveling it. Yeah, let's just do this thing he's doing. Ranking effect, effectiveness over time. I'm just gonna put scaling here because I think that's what he's talking about. Is like as you get later and later into the game, how good is it, kind of thing. And then activation. I'm assuming this is like, does it self-activate kind of thing? How easy is it to activate? Like, obviously, Urin is nearly impossible to activate, and then something like Ozrith activates itself. So Kyra, Falorath, Cedric. Oop, that's the wrong one. Sorry, Belle. Cedric, Callus. I don't even know if this is the right way to spell Urin, but we'll... I always think Urin because I hate using it. It's like ooey, you know. Ozrith, Bogarth, and Darren. Oops, my bad. Can we delete? Thank you. Ozrith, Darren. So I'm gonna let him go through, do his thing, and then I'm gonna do mine. I don't really need to do the X out of 5, I don't think. But
Should even
we'll
just say
see.
this. So as you rank it up, it doesn't quite get as good. We can kind of think about that. So if we look here and we do like a
Well,
effective over time.
that's a whole
So let's
graph.
say this is like as you upgrade it, and this is as your NG goes higher. So we'll have NG over here, and this will just be upgrades. All right. So move this out of the way a little bit. So this will be your upgrade over time. So for the passive effect, it's going to be really good. We can even say this is like usefulness over time. Yeah, we'll change this to usefulness over time, just because upgrading it should make it more useful as you put more ore into it. So its passive effect, it starts out useful and it just stays useful the whole time. So that's
Yeah,
really good.
that makes sense.
Um,
For sure,
the
for sure.
upgrade effect, it does increase. It probably increases more like this. It goes from useless and gets better and better the more you put into it. But you have to be doing a lot of specific things like scaling skill power
Yeah, that's fair.
solely without doing any like cost
I
analysis.
think Kyra is one of the strongest statues in the game, but she requires that you put a lot of ore into her to be super effective after a certain point. And when it comes to late game, it's more about what you can put ore into. Because like every statue besides like Urin is gonna be super strong if you can just like if you have a super over leveled Darren, it's gonna be super strong. But if you level Kyra, Kyra can't really be used on somebody like Sorcerer. So I think that's one of the things that takes away from her potential
Stuff.
at a high level.
So overall, I'm gonna give that one passive effect is like easily a 5. It's like super good. Ranking effect, I'm gonna put it kind of low. I don't think it's really viable right now to try to scale skills without cost. And since this is a proc, you can't really scale it with cost, so it's not going to be effective at the high ranks of the game unless you can just get an absurd level to where the base amount is so huge that when you multiply it by enough skill power, it's gonna be good. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 there. So that's the ranking effect. Effectiveness over time is kind of a question mark. No one's really pushed this statue that high because you really just want the passive effect. So I'm gonna give this one like a 2. I think the damage is good early, even from these procs, like NG0, NG2 maybe. But then you start getting like 10, NG20. As your statue falls behind in levels, this damage is going to fall off.
That makes sense.
Because you only get 4 per level, so level what 10 you should have 40 damage, and level 20 you have 80 damage. But things are going to start outscaling that because most skills in the game do like 25 or so damage baseline, like Thief primary, Paladin primary, and you add Incendiary Demise, and it does like 60.
Incendiary Demise is a really good early game power spike, but you can't keep leveling it up, which is why I think Kyra can eventually level with Incendiary. Because you start off with like what 10, so you've only got to do 30. That's about 7.5 levels, so we'll just say 8. Once you have Kyra level 8, it's essentially an Incendiary Demise for each hit. It just doesn't scale with primary yet, so then you have to switch over to skill power in order for that to do anything.
65, and then you start scaling it up from there. But this is there's not a lot of room to scale from here, as far as I've seen, at least with the skill power. And it's just kind of awkward that this is for primary attack and this does skilled things. So this is both primary. I'd see a lot more useful that you could scale it, but it's definitely an interesting one. And then activation, this is pretty easy to activate. I mean, if you have a 50% chance, so it kind of forces you to go like a luck base to get that chance even higher. But the activation's pretty easy, so I'm going to do like a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect, but it's there. So overall, we will say that this is like a... I'm going to give this a solid B, at least to start. Maybe as we put more...
I think he's on tier list maker. Let's go there. Might be wrong, but let's just check it. Ooh, hello. Sorry for the slash. Tier maker. Woo! Does it keep my search history? No. Cool. There we go. Okay. So did he put everything in
more
his...
in, it'll go higher or lower, but I think it's a solid B. It's just so good. It can compete with a lot of statues late game, and it's pretty good early game. So mainly just because it's passive effect.
Yeah, its
This you
passive
can
is real
kind of
strong.
just completely ignore. So I put it in a B just because it doesn't have a secondary effect that's really viable. Next statue is Fairlath. So the build effect lowers the health of an enemy attacker by 5% when evading.
Let's go back
4
to
out of 5.
damage X out of 5. Is he not gonna? That's kind of funny that it's converting it to dates. So we're just gonna put X out of 5 over there, just so that everybody knows what kind of scale we're on. But what notification is this? Sorry. Okay. So for damage, I don't know. I think that let's just start with passive effect. That's really easy. That's just a 5. I think that Kyra has probably the best passive effect of any statue in the game. Just the ability to attack faster. Like, once you're at a really high level, I feel like the only way you die is when you're not life leeching. It's very rare you just get like or a trap. It's very rare that you get killed like the second that you're life stealing because you just leech so much. Something would have to literally one shot you. Ranking the effect. I don't know. I feel like ranking the effect and yeah, I guess those are different. So you only get 4 extra base damage per arrow when you're ranking the effect. So I'm saying that's probably going to be a 2, just because it's so like the amount of effectiveness you're going to get out of it versus another statue ranking it up. I think is just so little. Scaling. I think this statue has potential to have like some of the best scaling in the game on something like Paladin, where like you don't really want to have to build Wilmer and skill cast the entire game. You'd rather just go Kyra. And like it's one of those statues that I feel like it's the only way to actually build a quote unquote primary character late game because it's the only way to scale your auto attacks. Even though it's skill power, it's the only way that you can really like use your auto attacks to be killing things. So I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. Because same thing like that I was talking about earlier. If you're gonna put the ore into it, that's really expensive because of how much ranking the effect does, and that means you don't get to put ore in your other statues. So activation, I think it's a 50% chance to shoot these arrows, and you're building luck every game. So like, it's I think the activation for this one's pretty good. I'm gonna give it like a mid tier, 3 out of 5. Damage. There's not really like once you have a good amount of damage, there's not really a better way to increase your damage than either penetration or attack speed, and this gives attack speed. So I'm gonna give this one a 4 out of 5 here. I'm probably a little biased towards Kyra just because I really like Kyra, but I feel like Kyra's an A tier. Just the attack speed itself, like, I think that nothing really ever is going to outscale that unless your damage is just truly abysmal. And just so we can go over the tiers, D is literally do not ever use. C is like, we can type this in here. C is situational. D is do not ever use. B is average. S is broken. And A is all your ore. Because you should be putting ore into these statues because they're good. Okay, let's get back to the video.
It's not perfect, but it's there. So overall, we will say that this is like a... I'm gonna give this a solid B, at least to start. Maybe as we put more in, it'll go higher or lower, but I think it's a solid B. It's just so good. It can
Popcorn.
compete with a lot of statues late game, and it's pretty good early game. So mainly just because it's passive effect. This you can kind of just completely ignore. They're putting it a B just because it doesn't have a secondary effect that's really viable.
If you're worried about the secondary effect, also, not upgrading a statue lets you upgrade your other statues more. Fair point.
Next statue is Faralath. So the build effect lowers the health of an enemy attacker by 5% when evading. So evasion's pretty good on all characters. It's really good in the meta right now. So that's kind of like just a useful effect to have. It's kind of it's definitely RNG, but it does lower the attacker when evading. And so anytime you evade, you're gonna lower its attack, which is pretty nice. But kind of RNG, and you gotta get the right items and whatnot. Upgrade effect, each level of statue increases the damage done to disarm and stunned enemies by 5. So this actually works really well with a lot of characters. So disarm and stunned is not going to work with certain characters, but some have it baked into their skill kit, like Gladiator has their nets, which disarms. The Paladin has a stunning blows, which stuns. And then you even have Thief has smoke bomb. and base evasion. Ranger has base evasion, so it works well with some characters. Other ones you kind of go after, you have to go out of your way if you wanted to make it work. Like I wouldn't really put this on like a warlock character because you have to get evasion, you have to get away to stun, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to make it work. So it works really well on some characters, but not all characters. So we'll say the activation is pretty easy, but it only works on some characters. So I'm gonna go with like maybe a 3 out of 5. Let's put in the date.
You figured it out.
Whatever. You guys get it. Maybe we just don't need any of this. We just clear these out.
Oh dang, he's getting rid of them.
Nonsense. So this is all just going to be out of 5. So damage is 5. Passive effect, what do we say? That's a 5 as well. Raking effect, I think we gave it a 3. Effectiveness over time was like a
Yeah, that makes sense.
2. And activation was a 4. It's pretty easy to activate. It's still grabbing these dates. Okay. That's annoying.
The struggles.
Alright, we'll just change these 5s to whatever. So 5, 5, ranking effect. So that was a 3. Effectiveness over time is a 2, and then activation was a 4. Alright, so Faralath, the activation is going to be kind of on the lower end. It works well with some characters, like 4 out of 9 of the characters, right? Because Gladiator, Thief, Paladin, maybe only 3 actually. Oh, and then I guess Ranger has evasion, so it kind of works with that. So I'm going to put this kind of on the low end. It's pretty niche, so we'll do a 3. Effectiveness over time, it's pretty good. It gets 5 statue levels per. So I'm going to give that a 4. It's not the best in terms of damage, but it's pretty like standard.
Activation, I don't know. This is a 3. It's really hard to activate. It doesn't work on bosses, which is kind of a big. I mean, the evasion works on bosses, but the other part doesn't. So like, I don't know.
It's a very standard statue. Ranking effect, kind of the same thing. 4. Passive effect, we'll give it like a 4 as well. I think this one's gonna get 4 across the board. Damage is actually gonna be a little lower. I'm gonna put it as a 4 because certain statues do a little more. So let's see. Where do you actually want to put this on our list then? I think Faralath is gonna be a little better than Kyra just because you can put more into it and you'll get more out of it. So Faralath is gonna be
Okay. Let's start with the activation. I'm probably gonna give activation for this one a 3, just because it doesn't work on every class. Doesn't work on bosses, and you need items to make it work on the classes that it doesn't work with. And even once you get those items, just don't feel like it's super great. It's only 5%. Scaling, I think this has potential to scale pretty well, just because the passive that lowers the enemy health by 5%. I think that is their current health, not their max health, so you can't just evade 20 attacks and kill a boss. But it definitely helps for like healthier bosses like Neris. So I'm gonna give that one a 4. Ranking effect, same thing. I'm gonna give it a 3. Um, I don't think it's super great, to be honest. It doesn't work on bosses. You need items to make it work. Only works on certain characters. Passive effect, I'm gonna give it a 3. Lowering the health by 5%. I don't think that's that great against, because like you have to consider what a lot of the characters who can use this. It's Gladiator, Thief, Priest, or not Priest, Paladin. They're already characters that have really high single target damage. Like Thief is already going to kill things really quickly because of his passives. Gladiator has built-in crit chance, and Paladin is Paladin. So I don't know. Damage. I'm gonna give this one a 3 too. I'm not super hot on Falarath. It's one of my not super favorites. I think it can work if you have it like as a similar level as your other primary statues, but it comes back to the thing that you can't use it on classes that it's not good on. So like, why would you put Aura into it when you could just put Aura into other statues that help everybody? I don't know. Where is Falarath? He's the little thief-looking guy. Yeah, I'm gonna put him in average. I think you can use him if you want to. I don't think he's necessary on pretty much any build. So I'm gonna put him there.
in the A tier. Now we're gonna move on to Cedric. Cedric has a built-in effect. Picking up mana crystals increases your mana regen and resistance by 20% for 30 seconds. So the only thing about this passive effect, I mean, it works on everyone, and it ties into his upgrade effect. His upgrade effect is each level of the statue adds 5% of your resist to your skill power. So as you pick up a mana crystal, you're going to get resist, and that resist will give you skill power, right? The only thing about
Don't
this
forget
is like
the mana regen, boys.
I think the passive effect is on the low end. It is percentage resist, which is nice, and it gives you mana regen, which is alright. But versus boss fights, when I really think these things need to shine, that's kind of on the low end. So the passive effect, I'm gonna give it like a 3 here.
Yeah,
Ranking effect,
that's probably
it's
about
actually
what I
really
would give
good
it.
because it scales with like another stat, so you can increase your defense to increase your offense. So that's gonna be a 5 for sure. Effectiveness over time is gonna be a 5, and to activate, all you have to do is pick up a mana crystal. That's okay. But really, the activation isn't for the first part; it's for the second. And so this is just
Yeah,
passive. So
that's what I
activation
was
is a
actually
5,
gonna
which
argue
works
if you
all the
didn't.
time. Which I guess was kind of similar to Fairlath. That one works all the time, but this is like an extra thing. And I mean, you still have to stun and disarm, so I still stand behind the 3 for activation on that one. But this one's just passive, so pretty easy. So Cedric is 5-3-5-5-5. I think that is correct.
Okay, before he does that, I want to do mine. Damage, this is a 5. I think this is one of like the top 4 late game statues. It scales with skill power, which is like what 90% of the things in the game scale with. And you can always just make the argument that like having a higher level Cedric means you don't need to play Wizard as much, which means you're putting in less time pushing a class you don't need to, which lets you push the class you needs to more. It's that whole thing. Passive effect, that's a 5. That's literally insane. Wait, no, that's not the passive effect. That is the crystals of the passive effect. Because it's what you get whenever you build it. Um, I kind of just use it in niche situations, and a lot of the time, like if I'm about to take a fire trap, I'll like try to go find a mana crystal or something. It helps with mana regen in the early game, but like you're not really building the statue for the early game anyway. I'm gonna give this one a 2 out of 5. I don't really think it's that great. It's certainly useful, but it's something that like I'm not gonna build the statue if that's all it does. You know, ranking effect 5. There's no reason not to give that a 5. Scaling 5. Activation 5. I mean, the mana crystal is kind of annoying and all, but like it's not about the mana crystal, like Bleaks was saying. Yeah, this statue just lets you scale insanely into the late game because you just keep getting more and more resistance, which just gives you more and more skill power. It's literally insane. This one has to be an S tier. Anybody who's not putting Cedric in S tier, I think this is Cedric because Wilmer is. Actually, I don't even know what's that's Bolgar. No, that's Bolgarth. Callus. Ozrit, Theron. I'm gonna just find out which one it is. Cedric's the book person. Gotcha. You should be putting them at like once you're like past MG50, you should be putting the majority of your ore into the things in the S tier. And yeah, I don't know how you don't put this in S tier. He might not, but like you got to put that in S tier.
Yeah, so Cedric is one of the like crazier statues. So this one is actually going to be S tier.
Yeah.
You can maybe argue that it should be an A tier or something like that, but from what I've seen, yeah, maybe it is A tier because we do have better statues. So we're putting an A tier, but it's basically mandatory. I guess in that case we should do mandatory A tier. S tier is just better than A tier, and then we have B tier is not mandatory but still really good. Maybe it's more like this, but Kyra's on the low end of B. Alright, so we'll do that. I'm happy with that. Callus, he's basically the primary version of Cedric. He gives you attack power based on your armor percentage, and his build effect is to block most projectiles. So
He is the primary version of Cedric, but you have to consider that most things scale better with skills than primary. So I definitely think that's going to come up in this. Okay, back to this.
It's a really good defensive option. Block most projectiles. I mean, I would say his passive effect is easily a 5. His damage is going to be a 5 as well. It's going to basically mirror Cedric, except he has an easier passive effect. Passive effect that works against some bosses. I guess maybe not actually, because all the projectiles, except for maybe the vampire, can't really be blocked.
Can you block the projectiles from the vampire? I think they still make you bleed, which is the real problem for them.
By this kind of stuff. So
oh, he's probably talking about the fan of swords, though. Never mind.
Just to be in line with Cedric, we should keep activation the same, because they're not going to work on bosses, but everything else will. And yeah, activation is passive, so it's easy there. So Callus, since it's so similar to Cedric, it's just going up right there with it. It's if you're primary, you're taking this one. If you're skill based, you're going to take that one, like 100% of the time. Alright, next up we have Erwin.
So he already did Callus. Callus, damage is a 5. Passive effect, I think the passive effect's much better than Cedric. I think this passive, it's so nice for dealing with wisps. Ranking effect is a 5. Scaling is, ooh, that's actually kind of a toughie. I'm gonna give this scaling either a 4 or a 3. Just because primaries don't really scale well into the late game, because the base damage for primaries doesn't increase like the base damage for skills does with Wilmer. Who knows? Activation. I mean, like, you just have to play Paladin, right? Like, that's probably a 5. So, even though the overall score for this is 1 point higher than Callus, I'm actually not going to put him in S tier. Where is he? Sword guy, right? Maybe. Callus. Yeah, sword guy. I'm not going to put him in S tier just because I don't think he's broken. He doesn't scale to like NG 300, which is what I really think makes like a statue broken. Is like as you get later into the game, it just keeps getting exponentially better. And I don't think that's what Callus is. I think Callus is probably the best mid game statue, where like you're playing your character's primary, you're getting some paladin titles and stuff. I think that's what Callus is really strong for. After that, I think he falls off decently hard, but maybe that's just my personal opinion. Who knows? Okay, let us go to back here.
What is there to really say about Irwin? We'll read it. We'll read its effects. 7.5%
Yeah.
chance to freeze enemies on primary attack. That's his activated effect. It's only primary attack, so it's a little awkward. So you want to use this on like a melee type character, but most of them have a way to do something similar to freeze, like stun, disarm. Even ranger has a way to root. So you don't really care about freezing with your, especially with your primary. I couldn't really imagine a thief taking this just to try to get the freeze. So as far as his passive effect, it's gonna be a 1. It's not worthless, but it's just too much redundancy, and for a statue, that's basically garbage. Let's also look at its other parts. So upgrade effect, each level of the statue increases damage done by frozen enemies by 5%. So it has the damage of the ranking effect, similar to Fairlath. Still 5% damage, so I'm gonna put it at 4. But it's just the way to activate it is really awkward. So I'm gonna put its effectiveness over the time is also gonna be a 4, since it's just less damage than other statues. And activation is gonna be basically terrible. It doesn't work on bosses, like no bosses can be frozen. So it's just gonna go really low. You're not gonna get this damage boost like you want, and you can only get it from primary attacks. If this is primary and skills, it'd be a little more interesting. But as it is, it doesn't work against bosses. It only works with primary.
Even if it was primary and skill, I don't think anyone's gonna build this thing. You're in the damage. I'm gonna put it at 2, maybe 1. Yeah, that's probably a closer, accurate estimate. Passive effect 1. Let's paint it up to a 2. Ranking effect. I guess it is the same as Falarath because you get the same damage percentage. But I don't know, dude. Scaling terrible. Activation terrible. There's just really no reason to ever build this statue. I think it's the only. Well, actually, there is a reason. It's to get the achievement of building Urin. But like, besides that, like, Urin's just kind of a joke. It's the only statue I really think that needs a rework. I think the other statues are pretty fun. You could maybe like nerf Wilmer or something, but Urin is. There's just not a good reason to use this statue. So I don't know.
Primary attacks.
It's kind of
Doesn't really
disappointing.
care about this effect, so it is what it is. So unfortunately, Irwin got
Oh, did I not use Bogarth? I didn't use Bogarth. Oh
a
well.
picture. Irwin is just D tier. Worst tier you can get. It's probably the one that needs a rework the most too.
Oh, he's literally. We're on the same page right now.
Wilmer. So that's our next statue. Build effect, 20% faster skills. So this is just a good effect. It's kind of similar to the Kyra effect where you have 20% faster attacks. So this is the same kind of thing. You get essentially a cooldown reduction on your statues, which is a pretty interesting effect.
It's close to Kyra, but I still think Kyra's passive effect is better.
That's kind of hard to get anywhere else. So I'm gonna give it its passive effect is gonna be at least equal to Kyra. So that's gonna be an easy 5. Ranking effect. Each level of the statue adds 5% of skill cost, adds damage to your skills. So that's just passive effect, adds flat damage to your skills, so that's amazing. Effectiveness over time is going to be a 5. It's similar to Callus and Cedric in that way, where they just give you the flat amount equal to something else. This is a flat amount just equal to your skill cost. It's kind of an interesting way to get damage because the primary attackers don't have any way to kind of replicate this. There's no primary version of this, so I think this statue is in a tier of its own, just because, in theory, since you can use Wilmer with Cedric, you're getting the flat damage added to your skill power, similar to how the Callus statue gets it to the primary. So primary builds are going to be using Callus, and maybe like Kyra for the faster primary. Well, Wilmer also gets to get the faster skills, so far we're equal with skills and primary. But then you have this second ability that gets added on that's going to push it to the next level that Kyra can't do. So even if you attach another statue to your 3 statue limit, you're still not going to get this level of damage out of the statue.
Yeah,
So what
Wilbur's
theorizes will happen
just
as you increase the
insane.
statue's level, all characters are probably going to shift to a skill-based class, just because you can scale up skill cost really well, and the statue will just keep increasing. So your skills start out at a certain level, then you add a bunch of skill cost to it, and then your mana pool increases and your mana regen increases. So your skill cost will stay the same, but your mana pool and everything will continue to get larger. So you're going to be able to not have a drawback from having really expensive spells, and this is just going to give you a huge payoff for having really expensive spells. So let's go ahead and put him in the tier. So Wilmer is S tier. He's in the league all on his own. If Kyra had something similar, it would easily jump from B tier to S tier, easily. Ozreth, Ozreth is our next statue.
Okay, let's do some Wilmer. If you're not putting all 5s on this, you're just an insane person. The activation, you have to, I guess its activation's a 4. Because in order to make this statue really work, you have to get certain drinks that make your skills more expensive. So I guess the only downside is like it consumes all your drink slots. Scaling, best statue in the game for late game. Ranking effect, literally just increases base damage on skills. Passive effect, it's not quite Kyra level, but it's really nice on someone like Wizard who's just trying to spam skills. And the damage is literally insane, so yeah. We're actually just gonna, let's see here. Is there a way to add another tier? It's not looking like it. Delete row. Ooh, there we go. Add row above. Oop, too many. Get out. Delete. Where my boy Wilmer at? There he is. Wilmer, and he's not called new. This is what is called the Wilmer tier. Wilmer's just insane. Whole tier of his own. If I could put like a few tiers in between Cedric and Wilmer, would probably do that. Yep, cool.
So build effect, 20% chance of enemies leaving poison cloud when killed, lasts for 4 seconds. Alright, so it's kind of interesting. You get a little poison cloud.
Let's fix that first.
The damage of that is kind of whatever, but it ties into its next part. Each level of statue increases damage done to poison enemies by 10%. The poison is a pretty good debuff. It applies to most enemies, including a lot of the bosses. So Ozreth is another tier above, let's say, Faralath, just because you can activate it on bosses. You can't really stun or disarm bosses.
And it's more damage than Felarath.
So Ozreth is going to be probably a 5 for activation. As long as you kill another enemy, if you kill enough enemies, you're going to leave a poison cloud, and the rest of the enemies are going to be poisoned. And it also increases the damage by 10% instead of 5. So that's why we have the ranking effect. Instead of having 4 for like Irwin and Faralath, Ozreth is going to be a 5 because he has double the damage. So going through these hoops is twice as effective for Ozreth, and it's built in. So instead of having to, you can freeze the primary texture, maybe play the sorcerer, and you can freeze some things, but your payoff is still only 5%. Faralath kind of works the same way.
Yeah, Urban needs to be like 20%.
Disarm or stun, but you're still only getting this 5%. And you can add this other damage, very RNG, but you also have to have evasion. So it just takes a lot more to get it activated. But this one, it's all baked in together. You take this on any class, and it's going to give you a way to poison enemies. It's going to work for most enemies, and it's going to give you the most damage payoff for poisoning things.
And if you're building skill casters, poison damage actually will scale off of your crit chance and your skill power. So that's a positive. And you'll actually heal from the poison damage you're dealing to enemies through evil infusion.
So
extra leech sources.
Damage, it's going to be a 5. It's higher damage than all the other ones. Passive effects, it's just good. Could be better, I guess. It could have a higher chance. Some do a 4. It doesn't just apply poison, so you're not guaranteed against bosses, but most bosses summon some kind of ads. So if you're really struggling for damage, you can kill an ad and get the poison eventually, and you're going to have this damage upgrade. Ranking effect is basically the best, besides the ones that just give flat damage, like Wilmer, Cedric, and Callus. This one gives you the highest percent damage, so that one's still going to be 5 for damage.
Yeah.
Effectiveness over time, I mean, it's the highest damage, so again, 5. Activation, it's the easiest, it's all baked in. You don't have to take any extra items. You could take extra items and makes it even easier, like a Caustic Arrow and like a primary build.
Caustic Arrow.
Or Caustic Touch on like a skill-based build. You're going to easily be able to activate this poison stuff. Alright, so let's put him in a tier. So Ozreth, he's got to be up here in the A tier. So these guys, this guy does 5% damage. This guy also does 5% damage.
Okay. Damage is a 5. Highest percent damage of anything. Passive effect, I'm going to say is a 3. It's really nice for clearing out big rooms, but it doesn't work on bosses. It gets really good with luck. But compared to like something like a Wilmer or a Callus or a Kyra, I don't know. Maybe it's a 4. I could do it for Kyra. That's pretty reasonable. Not Kyra, Callus. Jeez. Ranking effect. Yeah, 5. It just gives so much damage. Scaling is a 5. Activation, I'm going to say is a 4. Just because you need a poison item against bosses to make this really work. And it doesn't work against constructs, I don't believe. You can't poison constructs. So that's like a whole enemy type that you can't use. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bogarth. Oh, wait, no mind. Whoops. Yeah, Ozrith, I'm going to say is in A tier. No, I kind of want to put him in S tier, to be honest. He works well with skills and primary. He's worth putting your aura into, and his only real weakness is his activation on enemies and the fact that you can't do it to every kind of enemy. So yeah, I'd say he's pretty solid. Solid for S tier.
He's the next one in line, in my opinion. And it kind of holds true. Like, I recommend going Wilmer, Cedric, and Ozreth on spellcaster builds, and then we have Callus, Ozreth, and Kyra for primary builds, or you can also go Faralath if you're playing like a paladin, if you're playing a gladiator, if you're playing like a thief. It's like an easy one to get. Also Ranger, just for the evasion. You can also switch these like during bosses too. If you're playing solo mode, you can log out, switch the statue, log back in.
Yeah, I do that
I
all the
haven't
time.
ever had to do that, but these are
I
basically
do
the only
that
statues
all
that
the
you have to
time.
play with, at least so far. So now we move into Bolgarth. Bolgarth's a little different. So his build effect is every fifth primary attack in combo triggers a combo blast that deals 100 magical damage. So this is considered skill-based damage. This scales with skills, but it's actually on primary, which kind of has been a theme that we've been seeing, right? Like Kyra affects your primary, but gives you a skill. What else do we have? We have Erwin affects your primary, but gives you damage
Nice.
that you can't really get. I mean, I guess you can, but it just doesn't work against bosses. So it's really awkward. This works against all enemies. This is one that we actually probably want to look at the graph for. So if we look at this one, so this is going to be, as your NG levels go higher, this is going to be the effectiveness. So it actually starts off really high effectiveness,
Yeah.
and as you go up in NG, it just kind of
I think either Kyra or Bolgarth is the best level 1 statue. Like, those things are literally just insane. Like, the damage from it is insane. It falls off really hard, but the damage from it's insane. And just having extra time in combo, because you should be able to combo early game.
tank, right? So it's going to start off effective and go down. That's just because this is hard to scale with like an attack build, and it's hard to get 5 attacks on a skill-based build. So it's just kind of awkward how it works together. But early game, it's great. It's super good early game. Gorgoth damage really good early, but it falls off. So I guess I can keep the damage high. That's just kind of show that it like, has damage in general, which they all basically do. Maybe we don't need a damage column. Passive effect is this, right? So this I'm gonna put it as like a 2, I guess. The passive effect's okay. It just doesn't really make sense. If you're doing primary, it does start out at 100 base damage, so that's a lot of damage early game, and it
Yeah.
scales. So if you're playing like a thief early and you're using Bolgarth, it's going to trigger the combo blast around you, and you're actually going to be able to benefit from your skill power and your skill crit and all that. So it's kind of nice. It scales, but eventually your primary attack damage is going to get so high that this extra 100 is going to be meaningless. So that's why I would say that his passive effect is a 2, which makes his effectiveness over time kind of low. He's probably one of the worst effectiveness over time as far as like the either part actually. We should read the rest of it. So upgrade effect, each level of the statue increases the time to maintain combo by 0.5 seconds. So this is one of those that you kind of hit like a hard cap unless you're doing something really weird.
Infinite combo.
Normally in low NGs, you're not able to sustain combo, so this will help you increase the time, but the main ways you're getting into combo, at least like NG0, is going to be just from killing enemies. So this is going to increase the time you have to kill enemies. That's kind of great. It doesn't do a lot against bosses. Other ways to get in combo in NG like 2, you can use Amulet of Vengeance, or maybe use Kinetic Eruption, and you'll stay in combo in bosses versus that, but maybe you're not hitting fast enough, you're not hitting that 5% chance with Phonetic Eruption, even with luck and a lot of crit to sustain, so maybe you want to use Bolgarth. So like, let's say level 10 Bolgarth gives you an extra 5 seconds. Hopefully in that 5 seconds, you're able to retrigger combo and have combo 100% of the time. After you've achieved 100% combo, there's no point in updating the statue anymore. The only thing even interesting I could think about to do with this is you level it to like 100, 200 or something, which is going to be an insane amount of ore. And if you get it up to 100, you have an extra 50 seconds in combo. So maybe you can do something weird with that, where you get in combo from an enemy and you run through the whole floor in 50 seconds. But you're still going to have the issue against like bosses of getting back into combo, because you're going to be taken out of combo when you transition the floor, I believe. Either way, you'd have to kill the boss in 50 seconds, which
Yeah,
is
you
kind
get
of a
taken out of
slow way
combo
to
and
get
you
back
leave
in
the
combo.
floor.
Just seems kind of weird. So yeah, his effectiveness over time is very low, just because after I would say after level 10 Bolgarth, it becomes worthless. And its activation is pretty easy. I mean, it doesn't put you in combo, which could help, but it's all kind of baked in together. Everyone uses the primary attack some, but the faster you scale this, the more damage you're going to get out of this part. But the more of a skill-based character you are, the more damage this part's going to do. So it's like a yin and yang type of statue. But really, we're only going to look at it for this. It's just an easy way to help out early characters stay in combo so they can do things better. So Bolgarth, even though it's really good at early game, he kind of falls into the C tier. He's not terrible.
This is exactly why I made the C tier situational, because I don't think Bolgarth's a bad statue. I wish we had more statues like Bolgarth, where they are very situational and they're designed for a specific purpose, not just a generalist statue. Damage, probably like a 2. At least that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, probably a 2. The early game damage feels good. Passive effect, that's the blowy up thing. I'm gonna give that a 2 too. Ranking effect, 3, just because like that's the only reason you're really using the statue. Scaling 1, activation, you just have to get into combo. Actually, this is one of the best activations in the game. I guess you could say that the activation's for like the attack thing, but that's not really why you're using the statue. Now, even though I think this statue is like a C tier, I think that this statue is really good for like if you're below like NG10, this is like the perfect statue for you to use. It gives good damage and it helps you stay in combo on your combo builds when you might be having trouble with luck or crit. So I think the statue is really, really, really well designed. I like it a lot.
He's just only good for a very short amount of time. I would say at max he's good from NG2 to NG10. After that, his damage is going to fall off. you're going to get high enough luck and crit and attunements that you're going to stay in combo even without him.
That's
And
about
you're
right.
going to want to switch away from him and take a Kyra level 1. If you're a primary build, you're going to want to take the Trinity between Wilmer, Ozreth, and Cedric for spellcaster builds. Maybe you could use them for a while you're leveling up Cedric, or sorry, while you're leveling up Wilmer. When your skill cost, when you're able to actually support your skill cost, then you switch him out, bring in Wilmer. So that's going to bring us to our last statue, and this one was released in the DLC for the Witch Hunter. So the build effect, damage dealt to enemies that are burning has a 10% chance to also inflict bleeding. Off the bat, this passive effect is terrible. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. So I'm gonna put this at a 1.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of bosses can be bled, they can be burning and all that kind of stuff. It's only so it's not giving you the way to deal burning. It's just saying you have a 10% chance to also inflict bleeding. Bleeding does like no damage. There's not really any good ways to scale it. You don't get a lot of payoffs even for doing it. The only thing you can really do is like bloodletter. Enemies move like a little slower, but you'd have to kite. And there's not a lot of bosses you can really kite that's going to do a lot of damage. You're just going to get way more damage out of these other statues. So ranking effect, upgrade effect, each level of the statue increases damage done to burning enemies by 5%. So we're back to the 5% thing. So I'm going to put this one as a 4, just for that. There are ways to activate burning. Some characters do it automatically. Wizard and Witch Hunter come to mind. There's
They suck.
I don't think there's any drinks that let you do burning, but there's some items with was it Flame Tongue and the Cape,
Yeah, Cape of the Flame
whatever it's
Walker.
called, Cape of the Flame Walker.
Ooh, there
So
you go.
you can sacrifice an item to get this working, but I don't know. I know people use this at like super high level. I haven't tested that, but I guess when you have enough damage, it's like a way to go because it automatically activates with one item. Whereas like Ozreth, you have to kill enemies, but you get double the damage. So it's really to the point where you have so much extra damage that you just need this extra damage instantly, and you don't have time to kill things, or you don't want to spend time killing things to proc this to sometimes have it. So you just pick Darien instead and get the damage instantly by sacrificing an item. So that would put his like activation lower. It's going to be like a 2 because you have to give up an item to activate him. You
Yeah,
have to take this statue, which is
that's
like
true.
half damage. But I'd say his effectiveness over time is probably high, just because he's the fastest way to apply like a damage buff. Some of the other ones are pretty quick, but not quite as fast. Like you have to stun or disarm, but that doesn't work against bosses. You have Irwin, where you have to freeze, but it doesn't work against bosses. You have Ozreth, does work against bosses, but only has a 20% chance, and the boss has to have ads.
As far as I know, there are 2 enemies in the game that can't be caught on fire as well, which is why I see a lot of people at a high level use Darren. Is because like Ozrith, you can't do it to everything. So like whenever you run into like a statue in the third act or something that you can't kill, it takes forever because you have this huge level Ozrith that's not being used. But like even the statues can catch on fire from Darren. So I think that's one of the reasons that he's used the Red Wisp and like one of the final bosses in the Moon Temple. Like one of those 4 can't be caught on fire as far as I know. So I think that's really the reason that Darren is used is because he's quick and consistent damage because it works on all enemy types. And obviously Cape of the Flamewalker scales with skill casters really well.
You have to kill the ads close to the boss, you get the poison cloud, it only lasts for 4 seconds. Then you have this one where most, actually all bosses can be burned. So this is like the easiest way to get damage on bosses. So that's going to kind of boost it a little bit. I'll actually put it up here just for late game. So it's going to go in A tier.
Yeah,
And that's
that's
going to
where
wrap up
I'm
our tier list.
probably
So
where I'm gonna put it. Damage is gonna be a 5 for me. The passive effect does kind of suck. I think it's probably on par with Urine to be honest. Ranking effect, that's pretty fantastic. I'm gonna be honest. Scaling, I think, is a 5. Activation, I'm gonna say, is a 3. You have to give up an item slot for it, like you said, or just be playing Wizard. It works really well with Wizard too. I think the main issue with this statue is that it's not great early. So you get to this problem, it's like, when do I stop leveling Ozrith and when do I start leveling Darren? At least that's the issue I'm at right now. Because, like, Ozrith is just better until you start having trouble with, like, specific bosses or specific enemies that can't be burned. Or they can't be poisoned. Whoops. Wrong way. Yeah, I'm gonna also put it... I kind of want to put it in the same tier as Ozrith. I feel like they just do the same thing differently, though. Less damage, more consistent, easier to... Wait, yeah. Less damage, harder to activate, but it's more consistent. Less consistent, easier to activate, more damage. So do you want the consistent safe option, or do you want the doesn't work on everything option, you know? So, I don't really know.
some of these could
It's
probably move
close.
around. Like Darien could move back and forth. I think we have a solid S tier and A tier. B tier and A tier are pretty close. It's just these 3 up here are flat damage. This one is twice the damage, and these are all easy to activate. So they just get really high. This is the next easiest to activate. This one's really good, even at level 1. Scales up really nicely. Its secondary effect is kind of whatever, so maybe Darren would go here. And you have this one that's really easy to activate, and it does the same amount of damage as Fairlath. You don't get the extra damage of Fairlath with evading, so that's kind of up to you. This technically has extra damage with bleeding, but there's really no way to scale it very well. At least not that I know of. Next up, you have Bolgarth. Really good early, like kind of in the A tier early, but it falls off late, which is going to cost
Yeah.
him some points over time. And there's Irwin, which just has no applicable use in the whole game. But anyway, that's the tier list for everyone. I'm glad you guys watched the video, and let me know if you agree with this or if you would change some things around. What you think with my analysis of all of them? Maybe I missed some things. And yeah, just let me know. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like this, please like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
I don't think he values Kyra enough. Besides that, I pretty much agree with him on